One of the fastest ways to jumpstart your tracks as a producer is to create a killer chord progression. And it doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro or a beginner, crafting that killer chord progression is something that's going to take your music to the next level. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down for you 3 simple tricks that will allow you to create hit-worthy chord progressions so you can start plugging them into your own tracks and songs and get ideas going much faster. Coming up. Hi, I'm Michael Emmerson, bringing you the best tips, tricks, and tools to accelerate your keyboard skills for your music production. Now, when I started out as a producer back in 2006, I always felt like there was something missing with my chords. I was hearing my favorite artists use loads of different types of chords, and I wasn't quite sure how to use them. But I figured out pretty quickly that you can write hit-worthy chord progressions just knowing a few simple secrets that I'm about to share with you right now. And I use these tricks all the time to write and produce for major publishers, major hit movie trailers such as Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, Netflix, different bands and different artists that I produce as well. So let's jump straight into the door. So the first trick is this: it's all in the numbers. And what do I mean by that? Well, did you know that there are actually 4,017 separate chords that you could actually play on the keyboard, all with different separate names? And that's not even taking into account the different ways you could spread out the chords. Now that is just too many chords to start with. Most songs just go off a set of 7 chords that you can play very easily, and it's something I like to call the scale of chords. Now you might have seen this type of thing before when you've got all of the 7 chords that can be inside the key. I like to call it the scale of chords. Sometimes it can be called the diatonic chords in a key, which simply means the chords that are from the home key, you've not stepped out of it. So if we just talk about the scale of C, then we're talking about all the white notes. You don't even need to know all the other keys to start out with. You can just learn the scale of C, and the same language kind of applies to all the other keys as well. That's why sometimes you'll see them written out as Roman numerals, which you can actually play up and down by putting an octave in the left. And that will give you 7 available chords that you can use and that are used in most popular music. Now, number 7 is actually a diminished chord, so you can kind of leave that one out for now. There are ways to change that I go into my chord accelerator course, but you can just work with the first 6 like this, okay? Now, there are some stats that we need to know about these chords. The first one is, which are the most popular chords out of these 6 to be used in songs? Because if you know that stat, you're going to be able to not only work out songs faster, but also use these hit chord progressions that I've also written out for you in a PDF that I'll link to in a minute. So, out of all these chords, which are the most popular? Well, we're in the key of C. You can probably guess C is definitely one that's one of the most popular ones, yeah? C major, F major, G major, and A minor. Now, if we go back to the Roman numerals a set, that's chord 1, chord 4, chord 5, and chord 6. Sometimes it's referred to as the 4-chord song because there's so many songs that use these 4 chords. But you can create any variation of this, even if you're just doing these shapes here. Okay. Okay, now that can sound quite basic at the beginning, but you just want to build that foundation of creating a simple chord progression with what you can call root position chords. Now, let's go over the concept of root position chords. So they all look the same shape. If I just show you on the LUMI here, they all look the same shape, but the name of the chord is always at the bottom. So that'd be a C chord, that'd be your F chord with the F at the bottom, G and A minor. They are the most popular chords. So you can say, right, I could start a chord progression with A minor, then we go to F, then we go to C, then we go to G, and you can just pick 4 to start with out of those most popular. And I like to call those chords the hit makers because you can literally get a hit track going instantly within seconds just by using different combinations of those 4 chords. Now, often a question that students ask me about these 4 chords when they're learning them is, how would you start a chord progression if you were just using these 4 chords? Well, there are actually 3 chords that are the most popular to start with, and then there's 1 chord that's the most popular to finish on. And I have got some stats to show you as I'm playing these. So, and it kind of makes sense to the scale as well. If you're in a scale of C, the most popular chords to start on are, would you believe it, C, F, and A minor. Now you might be thinking, well, why not G, mate? Well, if you look at C, F, and A minor, they all contain the first note of the scale. So C contains a C, F contains a C at the top, and A minor contains a C in the middle. Now that helps it link back to the key that you're in. And these are also used a lot to start songs on. They would be the ones that are the most popular to start on. So for example, I could start a chord progression on F, go to A minor, then go to C, then maybe go to G at the end. And that would give me a nice base for a chord progression that you could do lots more exciting things and change it on the top, as I'm going to show you in a minute. That's just basic for now. That's the foundation element of the chord progression. Now you could just stick with that, but there are many ways you could change it. But before we move on, let's talk about the most popular chord to finish a chord progression on. Is actually G. Now, one of the reasons for this is because it's actually the most unresolved sounding chord out of all of those 7 chords that I just showed you in the scale of chords. So if you finish on G, the chord progression that you're making will naturally feel like it wants to continue. And if you left it there, it would sound unresolved, which is actually a good thing. So you could do A minor, you could do F, you could do C, and if you finish on G, it's got a nice ring to it, hasn't it? Now that might sound like a song already that you've heard, because so many songs have used that chord progression. And these hit chord progressions that I've been talking about are all available to you in a PDF download that I've made for you called the Progression Cheat Sheet. So make sure you download that by clicking the link in the description below. So now we've created the foundations of a chord progression with point 1. Now it's time to go on to point 2, simple rhythmic variation. And what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of songs will just hold chords, which is not a problem. But sometimes you might end up coming with a load of chord progressions that sound very, very similar. You might want to add more rhythmic interest in there. Now, by rhythmic interest, I'm not talking about just like accompaniment patterns and different rhythms and things. I'm talking about the ways that you spread the chords out across the bar. Now, if you're in a typical 4/4 bar with 1, 2, 3, 4 beats in a bar, you've not just got that whole bar to play with 4 beats. You can separate that into little pieces. So for example, if I take that chord progression that I had before, or want a similar idea with those 4 chords, I had F, A minor, C, and then G. You might notice I'm just playing those in root position chords still, yeah? That's not a problem, it's still foundational. Now, we can add more rhythm to this. So if I just zoom in on the bars a sec, you'll be able to see that. It's got 1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. So that's beat 2, beat 3, beat 4. Now I could say, let's do the first chord for 3 beats and then add a 1 beat chord in. So you can have different variations. You could have a 3 and a 1. You could have a 2 and a 2. You could have a 1, and a 2 and a 3. You could have loads of different variations. So for example, I could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've just added a few extra chords in there. I've not really done too much, but it can make a world difference adding more interest to your chord progressions in an easy way. So I could just record this idea now and add more interest in, and we'll go into the piano roll in a sec to see what I've done. It was 4 bars, so. Yeah. So just a few different chords there, but you can see I used the rhythmic variation, and I just basically, the main part I was adding in was a chord on the final beat of some of the bars. So rather than holding it just all the way through, I did 3 beats on that one, and then 1 beat at the end. So it was a 3 and a 1. Then I did a 4 beat chord, and then I did a 4 beat chord again. And then just basically just adding in these extra little tiny beats here just at the end just adds different interesting parts. Now, you could take a chord progression that's nice and simple, like let's say you had A minor, G, F, A minor, yeah? You could go and add some more chords to that, maybe 2 and a 2, so you go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the aim with this, to start simple, is just to create like a 4-bar chord progression, but you're adding different amounts of beats for each chord. So it makes it sound more interesting without being too difficult to achieve. Okay, so now we've got the basis of a chord progression. I've changed a few of the beats in there. So we've got a 3 and a 1. We've got some are doing 4 beats, but it's added a little bit of interest with simple rhythmic variation. This brings us on to point 3 of how to create a chord progression from scratch, is take it to the next level once you've added that simple variation in. So there's a few ways you can take it to the next level. Actually, there's loads of different ways. I like to think of this as like a buffet, different suite of options that you can add in, but I'll just show you a couple of different ways to make it sound even better. The first way is to change the shape of the chords. So for example, instead of just doing root position like this, we could change it to this. Now, what am I doing there? I'm basically just playing second inversion chords. Now, you might notice it's all the same type of shape, but it's a different shape to root position. So the easiest way to find a second inversion chord is to take a root position and flip the top note, G for example, so that is now at the bottom, so the name of the chord will now be in the middle, so that would be a C chord, second inversion. And if you're wondering what inversion means, that just means the chord has been flipped round a different way. It's still the same 3 notes as it was before, it's just a different way round. So for example, if I now play this chord progression and record it into the DAW, I could do it with a different sound, but also with a different type of chord shape, and that's the first way you could change it. Okay, so I changed the chord progression a little bit as well with the chords there. So I basically did the same chord progression, but I decided to hold a G for the final 2 bars. Now that actually makes an 8-bar chord progression rather than a 4-bar one. So that is one way to change the sound of it. Another way, if we just duplicate the piano a sec, is to add broken chords to that. So I'm going to play exactly the same chord progression, but some kind of broken chord pattern is going to come in. So let's try and come up with a broken chord pattern first. So you basically just take the notes that you've got of the chord and try and break it up into a pattern. So for example, I could do something like this. You can see that I'm using the F chord, second inversion, but I'm also adding like a little note in between the G, just to add interest. So I could go and play this chord progression now with the pattern as well. And then I could just carry that on and come up with like, you know, a part would be suitable for maybe a singer-songwriter or like a piano-y track, something like that. But let's say you were wanting to now do something that was more like synth-based, you would probably use more held chords, wouldn't you? Now, one thing you can do that's more of a DAW feature is you could add in some plugins over the top of a virtual instrument. Now, I've used a free one here by Contact, called Ethereal Earth. You can download this in the description below. I'll link to it. But basically what this is it's a nice synthesizer that's got some nice pads in it. And then all I did was stick some plugins up on the top of it. This Nicky Romero Kickstart is fantastic because it adds a lot of different rhythmic variation, and you're just using kind of held chords there. And then I also used a bit of output thermal on it, which is like a distortion plugin. Really, really nice plugin that, just to give it a bit of bite. And then I can play the same chord progression on that. And again, it'll sound totally different because I've used different sounds and plugins on it. So I could maybe up the speed a bit. You know, let's try 125. And this would suit a different style of music as well. Yeah, and that could be an idea that it's the exact same chord progression, but then I could do it in a different style of music possibly. So let me know in the comments what style of music you're currently creating. I'm now going to show you how I would approach using this chord progression that I've just made from scratch in the genre that I write for, which is trailer music, cinematic music. So the next way to take your chord progressions to the next level, or one of the best ways indeed, is to use something called chord voicing, which is basically how you spread the chords out across the keyboard. And you'll see how I can get an idea going pretty quickly just with using that core chord progression that I created before, the foundation, and then just add in some different sounds and voicings on the top. So here we go. Okay, so that'd be the basis of my next idea, yeah? But basically what I was doing there is I was playing the second inversion trick again, but I was just dropping out the middle note. So it's exactly the same chords as before, just dropping out the middle note because I've already got that root note in the bass, which gives it a nice open sound to it. Now let's say I wanted to add more to this now. That's like the bass layer of it, isn't it? Let's say I wanted to add like a nice bass to it that's got like a pulsing sort of sound to it. And I can add the mod wheel to it as well and just change it as I'm going. Okay, so it's a quick one for you. So I'm just really whacking it in for you so you can hear how quickly an idea can come together. But then I can add in some nice strings and maybe spread those out differently again with different voicings. It's still the same chords, I just added a few tweaks in there. There we go, we've got a good idea going already there. Now, one thing I love to do in cinematic music anyway, is to have like a really interesting sound in the background. I've used here Albion Solstice, the drone grid. It's a nice evolving sound. Really, really nice. Put the mod wheel there, you can hear it. So I'm doing lots of different things. All of these recordings are evolving in and around each other. So I could hold a chord and basically just have that going over the top and create a nice atmospheric sound just by using a slightly different voicing. Now there's only 4 different layers there. We've just got a bit of a synth at the beginning, 2 string layers, and then more of a bass pulse sound. And already that could be the start of an idea that I could take and then use in the genre that I like to produce. But you're not just limited to doing cinematic music with this. You can do any style of music that you like to create. You can start it with a simple chord progression from scratch, just using root position chords, then take it and change the shapes of the chords, whether you want to use second inversions or some different shapes you might know, and then change the sounds, change the patterns that are going over the top of those chords, and just the last trick is to change the voicing. And if you're interested in how to do that yourself, you can learn the voicing strategies that are being used by major artists, producers, and composers right now. So click or tap on the screen to get going in that next video, or another fast track keys, click or tap the screen. Smash like if you got value, and I'll see you in the next video.